Admiral Zorax walked into the Grand Council chamber with all four of his eyes blinking rapidly. This was not good. Not good at all. The emergency meeting had been called so quickly that representatives from all 12 spacefaring civilizations barely had time to arrive. Some still wore their formal sleep garments. No one cared about proper dress today. There were more important things to worry about. Zorax took his place at the large round table made of glowing blue crystal. The light from the table lit up the worried faces of the alien leaders. The chamber was built thousands of years ago when the Galactic Confederation was young. Its high ceilings and stone walls had seen many crises come and go, but nothing like this. This emergency council will now begin, announced High Arbiter Vex. Her skin rippled with patterns of concern. General Klaatu has news that cannot wait. General, please explain the situation. General Klaatu stood up slowly. Her 6 tentacles moved nervously at her sides. She cleared what passed for a throat in her species and spoke. 3 standard months ago, our forces made contact with a previously uncontacted species from the 3rd planet in the Sol system. We have recruited some of them to help fight against the Devourer swarm. The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts. Ambassador Threll slammed his crystal appendage on the table with a loud crack. You did what? Zorax finally asked when the noise died down. His voice was barely more than a whisper. We recruited humans, General Klaatu repeated. The Deathworlders? Ambassador Threll asked. His crystalline body glowed red with anger. The apex predators? The ones who made nuclear weapons before they even had one world government? Those humans? Yes. Those humans, Klaatu confirmed. High Arbiter Vex leaned forward. Her voice was dangerously quiet. Perhaps you should explain why you have put the entire galactic community at risk by bringing these creatures into our war with the Devourer swarm. Klaatu touched a control panel on the table. Large screens appeared around the chamber. They showed a human male with short brown hair wearing some kind of training suit. The name William Carter floated next to his image. This is one of our recruits, Klaatu explained. Watch. The screens showed William entering a training room. 3 large aliens with thick armor and sharp claws waited for him. They were Gratkal warriors, known through the galaxy as fierce fighters. Begin exercise, said a voice from somewhere off-screen. What happened next made the council members gasp again. William moved with incredible speed. When the first Gratkal charged, William did not run away as expected. He ran toward the danger. At the last second, he slid under the alien's legs, jumped up behind it, and found a weak spot in its armor. The 2nd and 3rd warriors attacked together. William grabbed a training staff from the wall and spun it so fast it became a blur. Within moments, all 3 Gratkal warriors were on the ground. Exercise complete, said the voice. Time, 47 seconds. New record. William smiled and wiped sweat from his face. He didn't even look tired. Klaatu turned off the screens. That was his first attempt at the exercise. No other species has completed it in less than 3 minutes. And this human is not even their best fighter. The council room was silent for a long moment. We have been fighting the Devourer swarm for 50 years, Klaatu continued. We are losing. The humans have unusual ways of thinking. They take risks no sane species would consider. They call it thinking outside the box. We need that if we want to survive. Zorax put his head in his hands. How many humans have you recruited? 200 to start, Klaatu answered. All military specialists from various Earth nations. To start, Threll almost shouted. You plan to bring more? If the first group works out, yes, Klaatu said. The humans are eager to help. I'm sure they are, Vex said coldly. A species that young, given access to our technology? I'm surprised. They didn't start a war just to get their hands on it. You misunderstand them, Klaatu insisted. They are violent, yes. Unpredictable, certainly. But they are also loyal and creative. They value life. All life, not just their own kind. We shall see, Zorax said grimly. Now tell us everything, from the beginning. How did this first contact happen, and who authorized it? 3 Standard. Months earlier, the observation vessel Distant Whisper hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere. The ship was designed to be invisible to human detection systems. Captain Neela stood on the bridge, her golden scales shimmering under the soft lights. She had studied humans for 20 Earth years. Now she would finally meet one face to face. "Are you certain this is wise, Captain?" asked her first officer, Delan. His antenna twitched with worry. "The humans are unpredictable, dangerous." "They are also our last hope," Neela replied. She looked at the blue-green planet below. "The swarm advances every day. Our conventional tactics have failed for 50 years. We need something the swarm cannot predict, and that something is humans." Delan did not sound convinced. "They adapt faster than any species we have ever encountered," Neela said. "They went from basic flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. They survived ice ages, plagues, and their own nuclear weapons. They are survivors." Delan sighed. "The High Council will not be happy about this." "The High Council authorized this mission," Neela reminded him. "Though perhaps they did not expect us to actually find useful allies." The landing site had been carefully chosen, a remote military base in a desert region. They would make contact with a small group of humans first, then expand if things went well. Inside the base, Major Susan Miller sat at her desk completing her evening paperwork. She was tired after a long day of training exercises. She reached for her coffee cup and found it empty. She was about to get up for a refill when her office filled with a soft blue light. Susan's hand moved quickly to her sidearm, but she did not panic or scream. She simply stood, gun at the ready, as Captain Neela's form appeared in the middle of the room. "Please remain calm," said Neela through her translator device. "I come with an urgent request." Susan's eyes widened, but her hand remained steady on her weapon. "Identify yourself," she said. "I am Captain Neela of the Galactic Confederation. We have been observing your planet for some time. We need your help." Over the next few days, a series of secret meetings took place. General Frank Johnson, Ambassador Alice Warren, and scientist Dr. Alan Wright were brought in. They represented Earth's military, diplomatic, and scientific communities. The humans listened carefully as Captain Neela explained about the Devourer Swarm, a hive-mind entity that consumed all life in its path. The swarm had been moving through the galaxy for centuries, adapting to every defense the Confederation tried. "Let me get this straight," General Johnson said after the third briefing. "You want our soldiers to fight in your war because we're naturally more aggressive than your species?" "Not just aggressive," Captain Neela clarified. "Creative, unpredictable. The swarm assimilates and adapts to patterns. You humans rarely follow patterns." Dr. Wright studied the data on swarm biology. "They're like a giant neural network that learns from experience," he said, "but they can be overloaded with contradictory inputs." "Exactly," Neela agreed. "Your species excels at creating contradictory inputs." Ambassador Warren frowned. "What do we get from this arrangement? Earth is not yet threatened." "Not yet," Neela said quietly. "But if the Confederation falls, Earth will stand alone. We offer technology, knowledge, and a place in the galactic community." "And if we refuse?" asked General Johnson. "Then we respect your decision," Neela answered honestly. "We will not force this upon you, but we will lose this war without you." The three humans exchanged looks. Finally, General Johnson spoke. "We'll need to bring in our leadership. This is too big for just us to decide." "Of course," Neela agreed. "But time is short. The swarm moves closer every day." 1 week later, the decision was made. Earth would help, but in a limited way. 200 military specialists would join the Confederation forces as a trial. If things went well, more could follow. "The recruitment must be voluntary," Ambassador Warren insisted, "and our people must be able to return to Earth whenever they wish." "Agreed," said Captain Neela. "We need willing partners, not reluctant conscripts." The call went out through secret channels to military bases around the world. They sought veterans with combat experience, adaptability, and open minds. People who could handle the shock of alien contact and the challenges of space combat. The response surprised even Neela. There were thousands of volunteers. The recruitment center was set up on a Confederation space station orbiting Jupiter. The humans called it Gateway Station. It was here that the 200 selected volunteers first saw the true scale of the Galactic Confederation. Sergeant Patricia Patty Rodriguez stared through the enormous viewing window. Ships of all sizes and shapes moved around the massive space station. Some were as small as Earth fighter jets, others were larger than aircraft carriers. All of them seemed to glow with strange lights and move in ways that defied Earth physics. "Holy cow," whispered Kyle Bennett, a former Navy SEAL standing next to her. They weren't kidding about advanced technology. Patty nodded. She had left the military after 3 difficult tours. Civilian life never felt right to her. When the secret call for volunteers came, she signed up immediately. Space travel, alien contact, and a war to save the galaxy. It was like something from the movies she watched as a kid. "Welcome, human warriors," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Officer Trex, their alien liaison. Trex looked almost like a tall, thin human, except for his blue skin and large eyes that wrapped halfway around his head. "Your orientation begins in 1 hour. Please follow me to your quarters." The human volunteers were given a large section of the station to themselves. They had rooms, a mess hall, and training areas set up to mimic Earth conditions. The artificial gravity was adjusted to match Earth's pull. "This isn't just about fighting," explained Officer Trex to the assembled humans. "This is about saving countless civilized worlds from extinction." Over the next 2 weeks, the humans learned about their new allies. The Confederation consisted of 12 major spacefaring species and dozens of smaller ones. All had evolved beyond their violent pasts, or so they thought until the Devourer swarm appeared. The humans also learned about their enemy. The swarm was not a species, but a collective. It absorbed biological material and information, growing smarter with each world it consumed. It learned patterns and adapted to overcome them. Conventional warfare had failed for 50 years. "That's where you come in," explained Captain Neela during a briefing. "Your species still thinks like survivors, like warriors. You see possibilities that we miss." Training began with basic weapon systems. The humans were given access to energy rifles, powered armor, and short-range teleportation devices. The Confederation officers expected the learning process to take months. It took days. "They learned too quickly," warned Security Chief Drac, watching Patty master an energy rifle design in mere hours. "And they ask too many questions about how everything works." "That curiosity is precisely why we need them," Captain Neela responded. "The swarm doesn't innovate, it only adapts. Humans never stop innovating." The humans surprised their alien trainers in other ways too. When given powered armor that could lift 2 tons, they immediately asked if it could lift 4. When shown teleportation devices with a range of 50 meters, they asked why not 500. They constantly pushed limits and boundaries. Most shocking to the Confederation officers was the human approach to risk. During a simulated space battle, Patty's team deliberately damaged their own ship to create a distraction. In another exercise, Kyle Bennett jumped across a 60-foot gap, with only a 70% chance his teleporter would activate in time. "Why did you take that chance?" Captain Neela asked him afterward. "The mission parameters didn't require it." Kyle shrugged. "It worked, didn't it? Sometimes you have to roll the dice." Not all humans adapted so easily. Some struggled with alien foods or the knowledge that Earth was just one small planet in a vast galactic community. A few returned home, overwhelmed. But most stayed, driven by a sense of adventure, duty, or simply the chance to make history. The Confederation scientists studied the humans closely. They measured their reaction times, their problem-solving abilities, and their physical capabilities. The results were both promising and concerning. "They're perfect for this war," admitted Security Chief Drac reluctantly. "But what happens afterward? If we win, what place will these warriors have in a peaceful galaxy?" Captain Neela had no answer. For now, survival was all that mattered, and the humans were their best hope for survival. After 1 month of training, the first human combat units were declared ready for action. They would be integrated into Confederation forces in small groups, serving alongside alien soldiers. Everyone agreed it was best to start small. No one predicted what would happen next. Living with aliens proved more challenging than fighting alongside them. The human quarters on Gateway Station quickly became a source of confusion and concern for the Confederation staff. Lieutenant Greg Weber established what he called a gym, where humans lifted heavy objects for no apparent reason other than to make their muscles bigger. When aliens asked why, Greg just smiled and said, "To stay combat ready." The aliens didn't understand why anyone would deliberately make themselves tired when no threat was present. Food was another problem. Humans needed a strange mix of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. They also wanted their food to taste good, a concept many species found odd. The food synthesizers worked overtime to create coffee, pizza, and something called chocolate chip cookies that some humans claimed they could not live without. "They sleep too little, eat too much, and laugh at danger," complained Commander Yith to Captain Neela. "Yesterday I saw Specialist Diana Moore smile after barely surviving a training accident. She called it fun." Diana had been testing a new jetpack design when the power failed. She fell 30 feet before the emergency. Systems kicked in. Any reasonable being would be traumatized. Diana asked to try again immediately. "That's how they learn," Captain Neela explained. "Through trial and error, often at great personal risk." Even more concerning were the modifications humans began suggesting for Confederation technology. Engineer Richard "Rick" Sanchez spent his free time in the engineering lab, taking apart and rebuilding equipment. "The shield harmonics on your battle cruisers are too conservative," he told the shocked Confederation engineers. "You're wasting energy. I can improve efficiency by 30%. The engineers didn't believe him until he demonstrated on a test model. His redesign worked perfectly. "These humans don't just think outside the box," Captain Neela told her increasingly concerned superiors. "They don't even acknowledge the existence of a box. Cultural misunderstandings happen daily. When Officer Trex mentioned that his species slept standing up, Patty asked if they ever fell over. The question seemed rude until the humans explained they weren't making fun. They were genuinely curious." Lieutenant Weber established an unauthorized fighting ring where humans sparred with willing aliens, claiming it built cross-species understanding. The medical bay reported injuries at 3 times normal rates. But strangely, many aliens kept coming back for more matches. "It's the first time I've felt truly alive in decades," admitted a Varlax warrior, after losing spectacularly to Kyle Bennett. The Varlax were once a proud warrior race before joining the Confederation and adopting more civilized ways. The humans also formed unexpected friendships. Patty became close with a Gratkal named Groz, teaching him Earth card games. Diana Moore spent hours with the station's chief medical officer learning about alien biology. Rick Sanchez and a team of Confederation engineers worked late into the night, redesigning weapon systems while sharing stories from their home worlds. Not everything went smoothly. Some humans grew homesick. A few had trouble adapting to space, travel, or alien customs. Arguments broke out over cultural differences, but most adapted with surprising speed. "I think I understand now," Captain Neela said one day, watching the humans in the mess hall. "Your species never stopped fighting to survive. The rest of us found peace and comfort centuries ago. We lost our edge. You never did." Most concerning to the Confederation leadership was how much the humans enjoyed combat simulations. They turned training exercises into competitions, trying to beat each other's scores and times. They treated deadly serious preparation for war like a game. "Are they aware of the stakes?" asked Security Chief Drac. "Do they understand what the swarm will do if we fail?" "They understand," Neela assured him. "But humans use humor and competition to cope with fear. It's not that they don't take this seriously. It's that treating it too seriously would paralyze them." Before the Confederation could fully adjust to their human allies, the first real combat opportunity arose. The Devourer swarm attacked a mining colony on Proxima Centauri VI, the closest star system to Earth. It seemed the swarm had learned about the humans and wanted to test them directly. Captain Neela gathered the human squad leaders. This is it. Your first real engagement against the swarm. Follow standard Confederation protocols. Observe and support. Do not take unnecessary risks. Patty and Kyle exchanged glances. Everyone in the room knew that unnecessary risks were exactly what humans specialized in. The Devourer swarm attacked the mining colony on Proxima Centauri VI with brutal efficiency. The colony was home to 3,000 miners and their families. They had less than 6 hours before the swarm would absorb them all. 5 Confederation battlecruisers responded to the distress call. Each carried a mixed crew, including small squads of human soldiers. Captain Neela commanded the lead ship, with Patty, Kyle, and Rick among her crew. Standard defense formation, ordered Admiral Vex over the communication system. Protect the evacuation ships. Do not engage the swarm directly. The plan was to follow the usual Confederation protocol: defensive positions, careful retreats when needed, and focus on saving lives rather than winning battles. It was a strategy born from 50 years of losing to the swarm. On the bridge of Captain Neela's ship, Patty watched the tactical display. The swarm ships looked like dark clouds with tentacles of energy reaching out. They moved in perfect patterns, always adapting to whatever the Confederation forces did. "Captain," Patty said suddenly, "I have an idea." Neela turned to her. "We follow the Admiral's orders, Sergeant Rodriguez." "With respect, those orders will get everyone killed," Patty replied. "The swarm is targeting the colony's command center. See how they're moving? They always go for the brain first." Neela studied the display. "Yes, that is their standard tactic. So let's hit them where they're not looking," Patty suggested. "While they're focused on the command center, we take a small team straight to their lead ship." The alien captain's eyes widened. "That would be suicide." "Maybe," Kyle said, joining the conversation. "But if we can disrupt their central node even for a few minutes, it might give the evacuation ships time to escape." Captain Neela hesitated. Admiral Vex would never approve such a risky plan. "Then don't tell him," Rick said from his engineering station. "I've been studying the swarm's communication patterns. I think I can modify our standard plasma grenades to disrupt their signals." The bridge fell silent. What the humans suggested was not just against orders, it was against 50 years of Confederation military doctrine. "How would you even reach their lead ship?" Neela asked finally. "Our shuttles would be detected immediately." Patty smiled. "We use their own patterns against them. They're so focused on patterns they don't notice when something breaks them. We hide in their blind spot." 15 minutes later, Patty, Kyle, and Rick were in a small shuttle with 2 alien volunteers, Graz the Gratkal warrior and a Varlax pilot named Zim. While the main Confederation forces engaged the swarm conventionally, their small shuttle slipped through the chaos of battle using irregular movements. "This is insane," muttered Zim as he piloted the shuttle dangerously close to a swarm ship. "We should be dead already." "Keep flying crazy patterns," Kyle advised. "They expect logical flight paths. They can't predict insanity." The shuttle reached the massive swarm command ship. Using short-range teleporters, the team boarded through an access point. Inside, the ship was a nightmare of organic and mechanical parts growing together. The air felt thick and wrong. "We have 10 minutes before they adapt to our presence," Rick said, checking his scanner. "The central node should be 3 levels down." The team fought their way through the ship. The swarm defenses were strong but slow to react to the humans' unpredictable tactics. When they reached the central node, a pulsing mass of biological computers, Rick quickly placed his modified plasma grenades. "These should disrupt their communication for about 5 minutes," he explained as he activated them. "After that, they'll adapt. We need to be gone before then." The team teleported back to their shuttle just as the grenades detonated. The effect was immediate and more dramatic than they expected. Throughout the battle, swarm ships suddenly lost coordination. They moved randomly, crashing into each other or firing at empty space. "It worked," Patty shouted as their shuttle raced back to the Confederation fleet. Look! On the main tactical display, the Confederation forces were taking advantage of the swarm's confusion. Evacuation ships were escaping while battlecruisers pressed a counterattack. When they returned to Captain Neela's ship, Admiral Vex was waiting. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme anger in his species. "You disobeyed direct orders," he said coldly. "You risked your lives and potentially the entire battle plan on an untested theory." Patty stood at attention. "Yes, sir. And you saved over 2,000 civilians as a result," the Admiral continued, his tone softening slightly. "The swarm is retreating. They've never retreated before." The news spread quickly throughout the Confederation. For the first time in 50 years, they had won a clear victory against the Devourer swarm, and it was because of humans who broke rules, took insane risks, and did what everyone said was impossible. The success at Proxima Centauri changed everything. The Confederation leadership, which had been fighting a losing war for 50 years, suddenly saw hope. And hope was a dangerous thing. It made people take risks. 2 weeks after the first victory, the Confederation High Council approved an offensive operation against the swarm. It would be the first time in 3 decades they had attacked rather than defended. Sergeant Steve Adams led the ground assault team for the operation. His mission was to land on Epsilon Eridani II, a world the swarm had taken over 5 years ago. The planet had once been home to a peaceful farming civilization. Now it was a swarm breeding ground. "Listen up," Steve told his mixed team of humans and aliens during the mission briefing. "The swarm has a hive mind. They share information instantly. That means they learn from every encounter. Which is why we always lose," said a Varlax soldier named Krell. "They adapt too quickly." Steve smiled. "Exactly. So we need to give them too much to process. Confusion is our ally." The alien soldiers looked confused themselves. The idea of deliberately creating chaos went against all their training. But after seeing what happened at Proxima Centauri, they were willing to listen. Steve's plan was called shock and awe, an old Earth military concept. Instead of the careful, predictable attacks the Confederation usually used, they would hit the swarm from multiple directions at once, using different weapons and tactics for each strike. "They have a hive mind, but it has limits," Steve explained. "If we overwhelm it with contradictory information, it will struggle to adapt." Admiral Zorax, who had taken personal command of the offensive, was skeptical. "This plan has a high risk, a failure." "All due respect, Admiral," Steve replied. "But the old plans had a guarantee of failure. High risk is better than no chance." The attack began at dawn local time. Confederation ships appeared from hyperspace around Epsilon Eridani II, but instead of forming their usual defensive pattern, they split into small groups, each attacking a different target on the planet's surface. On the ground, Steve's team deployed with what the humans called controlled chaos. Some units used stealth and infiltration, others used heavy weapons and direct assault. Some created diversions while others struck at weak points. The swarm responded with increasing confusion. It tried to adapt to each new threat, but before it could, another would appear. For the first time, the hive mind seemed overwhelmed. "It's working," shouted Krell as his team destroyed a swarm communication node. "They're slowing down." Meanwhile, a stealth team led by Kyle Bennett was approaching the primary swarm hatchery, a massive structure where new swarm units were grown. The plan called for them to destroy it with high-powered explosives. "Wait," Kyle said as they prepared the charges. "I have an idea." He contacted Admiral Zorax. "Sir, we're at the hatchery. Request permission to change the mission." "Explain," Zorax demanded. "We're not going to destroy it," Kyle told him. "We're going to capture it, intact." There was a long silence on the communication line. What Kyle suggested had never been attempted. No one had ever wanted to capture swarm technology, only destroy it. "The risk is unacceptable," Zorax finally said. "Sir, with respect, this is a chance to study how they operate," Kyle argued. "Dr. Maria Lopez is with my team. She thinks we can learn how the swarm communicates by examining the hatchery." Dr. Lopez was a human xenobiologist who had joined the Confederation Scientific Corps. She had been studying swarm biology from the limited samples available. If we understand how they communicate, she added, we might find a permanent weakness. Admiral Zorax considered for a moment. The old Confederation leadership would never have approved such a dangerous deviation from the plan. But the old leadership had been losing the war for 50 years. Permission granted, he said finally. But if there is any sign the swarm is regaining control, you destroy that hatchery immediately. The capture of the swarm hatchery was the most significant intelligence victory in the history of the war. Dr. Lopez and her team discovered crucial information about how the swarm's neural network functioned. They can adapt to anything, she explained to the Confederation Science Council days later. Except simultaneous contradictory threats, their adaptation mechanism overloads. The Epsilon Eridani offensive was a complete success. The swarm was driven from the system, and for the first time the Confederation had captured valuable swarm technology instead of just destroying it. The humans had changed the way the war was fought, but some in the Confederation leadership were becoming concerned about what would happen when the war ended. Not everyone in the Confederation was happy about the humans' growing influence. After 2 major victories, the Ethics Committee called an emergency session. They met in a small chamber deep inside Gateway Station, away from human quarters. Have reviewed the combat footage from Epsilon Eridani II, said Elder Philosopher Zan, his wispy form floating above his seat. These humans don't just defeat the enemy. They take visible pleasure in overcoming challenges. Some even smile during combat. The other committee members murmured in agreement. To most Confederation species, violence was a necessary evil, used only as a last resort. The idea of enjoying combat was disturbing. They are changing our military doctrine, added Ambassador Threll. Our forces are becoming more aggressive, taking more risks. 3 ships were damaged at Epsilon Eridani because they attempted human-style maneuvers. Captain Neela, who had been called to defend the humans, stood calmly before the committee. With respect, those ships also survived because of those maneuvers. The old doctrine would have seen them destroyed completely. The debate continued for hours. Some committee members wanted to limit human involvement, or even send them back to Earth. Others argued that the Confederation needed human unpredictability to win the war. Ambassador Betty White from Earth had also been invited to speak. Her name had caused confusion among aliens who expected colors to be adjectives, not names. She was a skilled diplomat who understood both human and alien perspectives. Our capacity for violence is matched by our capacity for compassion, she told the committee. We fight fiercely precisely because we care deeply. Look at the records. Our soldiers have risked their lives repeatedly to save civilian populations and even wounded swarm units. This was true. During the Epsilon Eridani campaign, Steve Adams had delayed his team's extraction to rescue a group of alien children who had been hiding in the ruins. Kyle Bennett had been injured protecting a Varlax soldier who had frozen in combat. The humans are dangerous, admitted Elder Zan, but perhaps we needed dangerous allies to fight this war. Still, concerns mounted. The humans had begun modifying their quarters, introducing concepts alien to Confederation culture. Recreation areas, entertainment systems, and most bafflingly, practical jokes. When Lieutenant Weber programmed the food synthesizer to produce everything with a slight flavor of banana, causing considerable distress among the Pylaxian delegation, to whom the flavor was hallucinogenic, disciplinary measures were implemented. It was just a prank, Weber tried to explain. No permanent harm done. The concept of deliberately causing minor discomfort for amusement was completely foreign to most Confederation species. It required 3 human psychologists to explain humor to the alien leadership. Meanwhile, human ingenuity continued to worry Confederation leadership. Patricia Rodriguez had established an unofficial research division that was developing biological countermeasures against the swarm at an alarming rate. They are creating weapons that could potentially target specific genetic markers, reported Security Chief Drac. The applications go far beyond this current conflict. Admiral Zorax reviewed the reports with growing concern. The humans were proving to be excellent allies against the swarm. Their unpredictability, creativity, and willingness to take risks had turned the tide of the war. But those same qualities made them potentially dangerous. "We need to consider," he told the High Council, "what happens if we win this war? What place will humans have in a peaceful galaxy?" No one had a good answer. The humans were warriors in a civilization that had largely moved beyond warfare. They were risk-takers in a society built on careful planning and consensus. Dr. Maria Lopez's research on the captured swarm hatchery was yielding incredible results. She had identified a weakness in the swarm's neural network that might allow for a final, decisive blow, but the plan she and Patty Rodriguez were developing was so risky that even other humans called it crazy. Operation Trojan Horse, Patty called it, referencing an ancient Earth military strategy. It would involve deliberately sending a small team into the swarm's central neural cluster, effectively into the mouth of the beast. "It's suicide," Admiral Zorak said when they presented the plan. "Maybe," admitted Patty. "But it might end this war once and for all." The Admiral looked at the human woman standing confidently before him. In just a few months, she and her kind had changed everything. They had brought hope to a civilization that had been slowly losing hope for 50 years. "I'll take it to the High Council," he said finally. "But I make no promises." Admiral Zorax walked into the Grand Council chamber with all four of his eyes blinking in sequence. The emergency council meeting had been called to make the final decision on Operation Trojan Horse. All 12 representatives from the spacefaring civilizations were present. No one wore formal dress. There wasn't time for ceremony anymore. "This emergency council will now begin," announced High Arbiter Vex. Her skin no longer rippled with patterns of concern. After months of victories, she showed patterns of cautious hope. "Admiral Zorax will present the human plan." Zorax stood before the council. "The plan is called Operation Trojan Horse," he began. "It was developed by Sergeant Rodriguez and Engineer Sanchez. It involves sending a small team directly into the swarm's central neural cluster." The council chamber erupted in shocked gasps, just as it had months ago when they first learned humans had been recruited. "Let me understand correctly," Admiral Zorax continued once the noise died down. "In just 3 standard months, humans have reversed a 50-year stalemate, developed entirely new strategic approaches to fighting the swarm, modified our technology in ways our engineers never considered, and are now proposing a final solution. That involves willingly sending a volunteer squad into the swarm's central neural cluster?" "Correct," General Cladu confirmed. "The plan has an estimated 70% chance of success according to our military analysts, and a nearly 100% chance of death for the volunteer team," added Ambassador Threll. "The human volunteers understand the risks," said Captain Neela. She had become one of the strongest advocates for humans in the Confederation. "That's precisely what worries us," said Ambassador Threll. "Their willingness to sacrifice themselves, their enthusiasm for facing impossible odds." High Arbiter Vex raised a hand for silence. "Perhaps the question isn't whether recruiting humans was insane. Perhaps it's whether our galactic community had grown too comfortable, too predictable, too stagnant." As if on cue, the chamber doors opened. Patty Rodriguez entered, followed by her diverse team of human and alien specialists. She wore a new uniform, a combination of Confederation and Earth military styles that other human soldiers had started wearing too. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, not looking particularly sorry, "but we've received new intelligence on swarm movements. We have a 48-hour window for Operation Trojan Horse." She looked around the chamber, taking in the concerned alien faces. "Look, I get your concerns. We're reckless by your standards. Aggressive. Unpredictable," she smiled. "But that's exactly why you recruited us, isn't it? You needed a species crazy enough to think they could win an unwinnable war." The council chamber was silent. Patty continued. "Our plan is simple. We use Dr. Lopez's findings about the swarm's neural network. We create a device that generates contradictory signals, too many for them to process at once. But it has to be delivered to the central cluster. There's no remote option." And you volunteered to deliver this device? Asked High Arbiter Vex. Me and my team, Patty confirmed. It's a one-way trip. We know that. But it might save trillions of lives across the galaxy. Rick Sanchez stepped forward, holding a small device. This is the disruptor. Once activated, inside the central cluster, it will send the entire swarm into chaos. They won't be able to coordinate or adapt. Your forces can destroy them while they're confused. Kyle Bennett spoke next. We have a modified stealth ship that can get us close. The swarm won't detect us until it's too late. Admiral Zorak sighed with all four breathing appendages. The question stands, General Klaatu. You recruited humans? Klaatu looked at Patty, then back to the council. Yes. And I'd do it again. The galaxy questioned our sanity, but sometimes sanity is overrated. Sometimes you need a species crazy enough to believe they can change the impossible. High Arbiter Vex nodded slowly. Then may whatever deities exist help us all. Operation Trojan Horse is approved. As the human team left to prepare, Ambassador Threll leaned toward Admiral Zorax. Do you think they'll succeed? Zorax watched the humans departing, already animatedly discussing modifications to the plan. I think, the Admiral said slowly, that the swarm has no idea what's coming for them. 2 days later, Patty's team departed in their modified stealth ship. The mission was classified, but word spread throughout the Confederation. Everyone knew that the fate of the galaxy rested with one small team of mostly humans. 3 weeks. Later, the swarm ships across the galaxy suddenly lost coordination. They moved erratically, firing at nothing or even at each other. The Confederation launched a massive coordinated attack that the swarm could not adapt to. The war that had raged for 50 years ended in just 7 days. No one ever saw Patty Rodriguez or her team again. But their sacrifice was not forgotten. On Earth, in Washington, D.C., a new Memorial W.